Hi, I'm Eddy from MINDSIGHT. This video is part one in a series that's going to show you how to take a simple Go web application and deploy it at scale on Kubernetes running in DigitalOcean. For this first part, we're going to focus on creating the cluster on DigitalOcean and how to set up your system to manipulate and configure this cluster. First, go ahead and create a DigitalOcean account. If you don't have one, check the links in the description down below, and that'll have all the information you need to follow along in this tutorial. Once you've created your DigitalOcean account, you could follow along with these steps and go ahead and click on the Kubernetes tab here on the left side of your menu. And if you haven't enabled it yet in your account, go ahead and enable Kubernetes so that you can see this screen. So DigitalOcean makes it super easy. We just go ahead and click this button, and this will give us a Kubernetes cluster. So this is the main screen that allows you to pick all the options and configure your cluster. We're going to go with the default version, which is the latest one that DigitalOcean supports of Kubernetes. And we're going to choose the San Francisco data center. And now we're going to add our node pools. What is a node pool? It is the pool of servers that runs inside the cluster. So the way that Kubernetes works is Kubernetes lets you define a cluster that has a variable amount of servers, and Kubernetes takes your application and figures out the best way to run it across all of these servers. So we're going to go with the default of 3 nodes, which means 3 servers, and we're going to use the default size for each of these servers. They're pretty small. They're just 1 virtual CPU and 2 gigabytes of memory, but that's good enough, and in future videos you can see how we could scale this to support pretty large loads of traffic. And finally, we'll give this cluster a name. Let's call this Go K8s demo. K8s is shorthand for Kubernetes, in case you didn't know. And we're going to go ahead and create this cluster, and DigitalOcean is going to be working here in the background for a couple of minutes while it creates the servers and sets up the cluster. So while you wait for that to happen, you can look through these steps and learn some basic information about how to get started with Kubernetes. The main first step that you will have to do, if you haven't already done so, is to install the kubectl command. And we'll have links in the description down below that take you to the instructions and the links to install kubectl. On this system, I already have it installed. And if you keep going through these instructions, it'll show you how to connect to this cluster to ensure that you can communicate with it. And finally, it's going to show you some examples of how to set up Kubernetes with a very simple workload. So we're going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom of these instructions, and we're going to download this config file. So this config file has the credentials to the Kubernetes cluster so that we can communicate with it using the kubectl command. So now that we've downloaded it, let's go ahead and set this up. So in order to set up the config file that we've just downloaded, the convention is to copy it into a .kube directory that resides in your home directory. So we're going to go ahead and move this file into the .kube directory. And the next thing we'll do for convenience is to export an environment variable called kubeconfig, and we'll set it to the path of the credentials that we just downloaded. And that way the kubectl command just will automatically use this config file so that you don't have to type it in a command line parameter every time. So this cluster is still being created, but we can go ahead and try to see if kubectl can tell us how many servers it detects running in this cluster. As you can see, it just sees 1 and it's not ready, so DigitalOcean is still going through the motions and creating this cluster and setting up the servers for you. Now we can see that the 3 servers are almost ready. 2 of them show up as ready, and 1 of them is still getting booted up and started. And once you get to this point, you're ready to deploy something to Kubernetes. In the next video, we're going to go over the Go web application and we're going to talk about the prerequisite steps that you need to do in order to get your application ready to deploy to Kubernetes. Thank you very much for listening, and subscribe for more content from us. Have a good day.